All right, look, there is a sentence in Genesis that every church in America has preached for at least my whole lifetime. You've heard it at every marriage conference, every creation Sunday school lesson, every sermon series that talks about family. Be fruitful and multiply, Genesis 1:28. The congregation nods. There, yeah, that sounds great. Pastor smiles. Somebody in the back row makes a joke. Right? The youth group section giggles. And we move on to the next verse. And I think that is one of the most expensive theological mistakes the American church has made in at least a generation. Because last year, the CDC, they released the birth rate numbers. The United States birth rate just hit its lowest point in 100 years. Not in a decade, not in my whole lifetime, but for 100 years. We're at 1.62 children per woman. Replacement level, the number you need to maintain a stable population, is 2.1. South Korea is at 0.72. Japan, Italy, Germany, Spain. Every developed nation on earth is below replacement. And here's the historical context on that. Every major civilization in recorded history that experienced a sustained birth rate collapse below replacement level, it eventually fell. Without exception. Rome didn't collapse from military defeat. Not alone. Rome had been fighting wars for 5 centuries before they fell. What preceded the invasion by 100 years was a fertility crisis. The population was already contracting. The tax base was shrinking that they'd pull from for those wars. Infrastructure went completely unmaintained because there just weren't enough able-bodied men to maintain it. And the military couldn't fill its ranks. The empire hollowed out from the inside rather than from the outside. Same pattern was in late Greek civilizations. The late Byzantine Empire was the same way. The Han Dynasty fell into that same trap. Does that sound familiar? No developed civilization has ever organically reversed a birth rate collapse once it reaches the range where we're sitting at right now as the U.S. So you can draw your own conclusions about that, what that actually means. But before we have the policy conversation, which everybody's having, right, I want to name something that I think's underneath it. Something that's under all that data. There's a sentiment spreading among men in their 20s and 30s right now. I've seen it in comment sections. Shoot, I've seen it from people that I know. I've had men tell me directly, it may even be, you could go through my videos and see it in my comment section. Why would I bring a child into this world? Not just the economics, though. The economics, man, they're catastrophic right now, and they're real. Housing costs are insane. The wage people are getting paid is insane. The fact that having to have 2 incomes is the norm now. It's never been more difficult to have a kid. But it's not just that. The sentiment goes deeper than just the economics on it, right? Because we figure out how to make do with what we want to do. It's the political instability, the sense that something is fundamentally broken in our civilization, and a child born today, he would just inherit that. That's what they're speaking to. Man, when you start doing that, the story's already over. I want to say something to the man who's felt that. Not here to dismiss it. The weight of it's real. The circumstances behind it are real. You're not wrong. But I want to name what that sentiment is actually under the surface. Because it's not primarily a financial calculation. You figure those things out. It's a theological position. When you say something is so broken in the world that we shouldn't bring something into it, you're saying it is not worth investing in. You are making a claim about whether God is sovereign or not. If he's sovereign over what comes next. You're saying the darkness has gotten too far. The story ends here. I don't really trust what happens after me. And Genesis 1:28 is a direct and deliberate contradiction to that. God didn't give the command to be fruitful and multiply after the fall. He didn't give it as damage control. He didn't give it as instructions after something went wrong, not as a response to a broken world. He gave it on the sixth day, when that creation was still fresh. Everything was declared good, nothing broken yet. Before sin entered, before the curse happened, before all the hard theology that most of us spend our lives trying to sort through, God looked at the man and he looked at the woman with paradise still intact. And he said, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, subdue it. It was not the fifth command, not the second, the first. The very first instruction God gave to the human race was go build the future. And it's what he's giving to you now. And the word subdue in the Hebrew, it means to bring something wild and uncultivated under your dominion. To take what is unordered and shape it into something that can be handed to that next generation in better condition than you found it. It's not a passive word. It's not a man waiting to see how things turn out. That's a man who believes what he builds matters. Do you believe that? That his children will carry it forward and their children after them. That's the original mandate. And the demographic collapse that we're watching right now, it's not primarily an economic failure or even a policy failure. It's a failure of that belief. Because I think we have to be honest about what the church built here. For the last 30 years, the dominant version of Christianity has been marketed to most Americans. And I want to be specific here. I'm not talking about all of Christianity. I'm not talking about disciples of Jesus. They taught men that blessing was personal. Personal health, personal breakthrough, personal success, your personal abundance. The language of what God provides got privatized. And the vision of the good life that most American churches put forward looked almost identical to what the culture was already selling you, a life of comfort. Minus a few, specific behavioral guidelines, guardrails, if you will. And what got dropped from the theological conversation, what got removed from the architecture of most churches, almost without them even knowingly doing it, but maybe knowingly, was the idea that the most significant thing a man might do with his life is to build something that outlasts him. Not a brand, not a business, a family, a covenant, a line. No one's preaching Genesis 1:28 is spiritual warfare. Nobody was making the argument that choosing to invest in a future that extends past you is a theological act. You're planting trees you'll never sit under the shade of. That is a declaration of faith in the God who says he governs what comes next and what will always come. It's gotten treated as a lifestyle option. You want to have kids? Have kids. And when you treat a command as a lifestyle option, you should not be surprised when the culture's lifestyle wins. The men who are already carrying the weight of, why bother? Who are already listening to that voice. Said, that story's over, you already lost, it's done. Got nothing from the church to stand against it. But the part they don't mention in the secular conversation is religious families in the United States have birth rates significantly higher than secular families. And that gap's been widening for 20 years. All of them are having more children than secular counterparts. It's not because they're wealthier. They often aren't. It's because their theology, what they know to be true in the deepest parts of them, gives them a different framework for what a child actually is, a blessing. Psalm 127, sons are a heritage from the Lord. Children are a reward from him. The continuation of something that began before you and will extend long after you is what you're stepping into. When that's your framework, when a child is a heritage from the Lord and not a lifestyle expense, the calculation changes everything. You're no longer asking whether you can afford the future. You're asking whether you trust the God who said he governs all of it or not. And you got to make that call. I can't make it for you. The men who actually land there, the ones who move from why bother to something different, it doesn't happen because of a government incentive program. South Korea has been offering cash for having kids for years, and that number hasn't moved. It doesn't happen from a political argument. It happens when a man finds something worth building, something worth living for. It's more than himself, more than his own pleasures, more than his own comfort. Something requires enough from him to mean something when it's done. Something that will outlast him. That's why men are flooding into the hard churches right now. Churches that tell the truth. 2-hour liturgies on their feet, 180 fasting days a year. Y'all know I've talked about this before. This is why men are gravitating toward communities with real standards, real expectations. Coaches who will not coddle them. Environments that ask something of them before they welcome them in. I don't think that is primarily a cultural war reaction from us. I think those are men trying to locate a reason to build, to find it and never let go of it. Because a man who's found a reason to build does not look at the future and see something too broken to invest in. No, he looks at it and he sees unfinished work. He says, my hands can be used here. My mind can be used here. But here's what I want to leave you with. The birth rate issue is not a symptom. It's the question underneath it, whether men still believe their lives mean something that extends past them. Or is it just about you? That's not a question a policy can answer for you. It's not a question the economy's going to answer or churn up for you. It's the question that was settled on day 6 of creation, long before any of us were here. Before the fall, before the hard parts of the story, before the world gave you any reason to doubt. God said, be fruitful, fill the earth, subdue it. The first command that he ever gave, it hadn't been revoked. The men who feel that, who hear that and feel something stir, the men who are tired of living as if the story's already written and ends badly, those are the men who are about to build something. The rest of the culture stopped believing was possible, and it's happening. If this landed with you today, if you know somebody who may be struggling with something like this, share it. Share it with them, because we should be in community. We'll see y'all out here. That's it. Find Jesus, fight culture, and spread the good news.